Hey, welcome to my channel. My name is Alan, and in this video, I'm going to share a few tips on how to be a little bit better, a little bit more comfortable doing some street photography. So let's begin. Okay, first, I'm going to share a few things about street photography before I share my tips. First, it's unpredictable. You don't know what you're going to get, and I love that. When you get out there and you capture something that you didn't expect, it's memorable. You could get out there and spend hours and not feel comfortable or happy with any of your photos. But when you do, it's magic. Trust me. One of the other things I love about street photography is that it captures a moment in time. Now, photography does that just inherently. But when you're photographing people that you don't know, it's much more of a moment in time. It's much more of a timepiece. And I love that. I think that that's amazing. And you're not going to believe this, but you get to meet a lot of new people. I thought street photography is taking photos in the shadows or at a distance or being unnoticed, right? Well, that is all very true. But you can also meet a lot of people, and I will explain what that means later on in this video. First thing is practice. You got to get out there over and over and over again and just don't stop. Uh, if you think about everything else in life, like cooking, learning a musical instrument, being an athlete, just anything, drawing, it takes practice. You just got to get out there and take photos. The other thing that you need to do in street photography is have tremendous patience. So, what do I mean by that? Once you're out, slow things down. Don't rush around and try to look for the next shot. Let it come to you. And so, by doing so, you are observing your environment. You're listening, you're looking at light and texture, you're seeing people who are mulling around conversations that are being had. Just be patient. Hang out, go get a cup of coffee and sit down somewhere and just look, right? Um, so, patience, really, really important. And this one's going to maybe throw you off: empathy. By having empathy of the people you're photographing, you will have a more connected vibe to the environment you're in. So, for example, it will give you the ability to get in touch with not being a jerk, right? What I mean by that is most people do not want their photos taken when they're out and about. And, for obvious reasons, it makes them feel like you're spying on them or you're exploiting them for some reason, or you're going to take their picture and use it to make money, which you're not supposed to do. But that's not what we're going to talk about in this video. Um, having empathy gives you a certain sense of understanding who you're photographing and what they're doing. It lets you become closer with them. It lets you be a part of them. And I will share with you some examples of that in this video. And the last thing is you're going to need a little luck. It's just plain and simple. You don't know. That gets to the unpredictability of it. But luck is a factor. So keep that in mind. And it's important to keep that in mind because when you do get that shot, you'll understand how luck comes into play. And because you can't plan it, you'll also have more respect and value towards those shots when they do come. Well, how do you begin? Well, for one, I would use this smartphone. I'd put your DSLR, your mirrorless, any camera, your film camera, whatever you've got, put it away. Don't bring it out with you. Bring out your cell phone, and it will take great pictures. But there's a really good reason why I recommend shooting with your smartphone until you get really, really comfortable street shooting. The reason is it is super, um, well, you're already familiar with it, and everyone has one. That means when you're out taking pictures, other people out there are going to see you doing what they do. Take pictures with their smartphone. They may not feel that you're taking a picture of them. It's not always the case, but it's a good reason. So just begin 5 times getting out there and use your smartphone. So that's what I would recommend. The more time you spend out there, the better. Just don't forget that. All right. So you're ready to get out and you're nervous. You're lacking the courage and it's preventing you from getting out taking pictures, right? So what do you do? Well, one thing I recommend doing is asking. Yep, asking people to photograph them, especially the shots that you really, really want to take and you know you can't be stealthy. Stealthy. You can't be um, stealthy, I guess. All right. Anyway, yeah, ask them. I've got 3 examples to share with you that is all around asking. I was in New Orleans um, several years ago, and I went there to do street shooting, eat delicious food, listen to amazing music, and meet people. And after breakfast one morning, I was heading out, walking around, just exploring. I didn't really have an agenda other than just going out and about the French Quarter, discovering everything. And across the street, I saw a set of drums that were stacked on the sidewalk. Got over there and I started to take pictures from all different angles. And I had this idea of getting lower and lower to the ground and taking these drums. I had this idea that I'd like to take a photo that would make them bigger than life. So I found myself laying on the sidewalk and taking a photo. And at that moment, I heard someone right behind me saying, they sound better than they look. And I looked up, and here's this gentleman, and he's looking down at me without smiling or being angry or anything. He's just there telling me this statement. And I get up and I brush myself off and I said, I apologize. I hope this is okay for me to take pictures of these drums. And he said, yeah, it's fine. Do you play? And I said, I don't. I don't play at all. He goes, well, this is a good time to start learning. And I said, no, I'm just from out of town. And he interrupted me and he said, well, I deliver. I had then later asked him, what do you mean? And he goes, well, I own a secondhand store on musical instruments. You come in and take a look. I went in and I took pictures of trumpets and flutes and cellos, and it was great. The only light that came into that store were from the front 2 doors that were wide open. So one light source coming in, and I was able to take some really exciting photos, I thought. I waited for him to finish with some customers, and he looked at me and he said, so, did you get enough photos? Did you see anything you like? And I said, I saw tons of things that I like. And I got a lot of great photos, and I thanked him. I asked him his name, and he said his name is Maurice. And I shared with him that I have a cousin named Maurice. I have actually a lot of relatives named Maurice, and which is hilarious. Uh, anyway, as I'm talking to him, he's kind of looking outside, and the light was hitting him in a way that just I had to take a photo, and I couldn't do it without asking him. And I thought about this. I was like, gosh, he's been so generous in allowing me to photograph his equipment and his store. I can't ask him, but I couldn't also walk away. The opportunity of photographing this man in this setting, the way he looked, uh, was too good. So I did. I asked him. And to my surprise and delight, he said, yeah, okay, sure, why not? So he asked me, what do you want me to do? And I said, just look out just stand here and just look outside like you were, whatever you were thinking about. Try to get back to that. So I ended up taking a good half a dozen images and I showed it to him and he loved it and he thanked me. We shook hands and we talked. We talked a little bit more about why I'm in New Orleans, what I'm planning on doing and seeing, and he gave me some recommendations. And off I went. And I have to tell you, as I was going on throughout my day, I felt great. I felt like I got a photo that if I don't take another photo for the rest of that day, it'll be all right because I got just such a great experience already on that morning. It's pretty special. Every once in a while, I like to go out and get a cup of coffee. And this one particular morning, I went out and got coffee with my girlfriend. And we sat outside in front of this cafe or this coffee roastery. The walls of this place are glass, at least this particular wall. And on the inside of the roastery is a counter where there's bar stools up there and people will sit there, have their cup of coffee, read, work on their laptop, etc. And I was on the opposite side at a little bistro table with my girlfriend and we're just having a great conversation. I looked over towards the window to look inside and the counter was about eye level from where I was sitting, and the gentleman that was sitting there facing me was on his laptop. He had his fist like this resting on the countertop, and on his knuckle, which wasn't as hairy as mine, uh, had a number five, a tattoo of number five on it. And right away, I wanted to take a picture, but I couldn't. At least I could, but I didn't want to make him feel uncomfortable. That was the last thing I wanted to do. So I resigned myself from taking that photo, continued having, a pleasant time with my girlfriend. Towards the end of our coffee, she got up, excused herself to go to the restroom. And at that moment, it hit me. I'm going to get in there and I'm going to ask. And if he says yes, great. If he says no, that's all right. At least I asked. Well, I asked, I introduced myself, and he said, sure. I went back to my seat and took a couple of quick shots. Well, I went back inside and showed him. And first, I thanked him again, and I showed him the photo, and he loved it. He's like, how did you do that with your phone? I've been trying to shoot uh, or get better at taking photos with my phone. I know it takes really good photos and everyone talks about it, but I just can't seem to get a good photo on my phone. And I said, well, I'm a professional photographer and I also teach photography and you should take my class. We started laughing. I then said to him, what's the significance of the number five on your finger? And he said, oh, well, that's my life. What did he call it? My life number. I said, your life number? He goes, yeah, I'm number five. You don't know what that is? I said, I don't. I've never even heard of it. And so he started explaining to me a little bit about it. And it reminds me a little bit about horoscopes, but it's different. It's based on numerology. So he then said to me, well, what's your birth date? So your month, day, and year. And I gave it to him. And he just did a little bit of math in his head. And he said, oh, your life number is 3. And I said, well, thank you very much. And we shook hands and off I went. It just felt so great to meet a new person, learn something new, and get a great shot. It just set my day right. And it felt good to make someone feel a little bit happy, someone who I've never met before. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. One day I had a colleague of mine. He's a professional photographer as well, and a really, really good street photographer. And he called me up one day and he said, Alan, get out here into the city, San Francisco, that is. And you've got to come here, bring your camera. The Bride's March is going on. And I was, what? What's the Bride's March? And I found out that it is a bunch of people getting together once a year and march around San Francisco each of them wearing a bride's a bride's gown, a bride's dress. Both men and women are are doing this, and it was great to see. Great to be there. So, yeah, I got out there and I started taking pictures. They all start at one location. At this particular year, maybe they do this every year, but it starts at a bar, and I go in, and it was just people dressed as brides everywhere. It was great. I mean, the amount of photography that you could do that day was just stupendous. It was awesome, and I was just clicking away. My eyes were wide open. Everyone was so happy and having such a great time. So they would follow a course and end up, I think, down in Union Square this particular year. I noticed these two guys. They were uh, particularly different because of what they were wearing. They were dressed as brides and they had makeup on, and they had two huge pink wigs that went straight up, like Bride of Frankenstein kind of style. And they were fluorescent pink. The two of them did. And they naturally stood out. One in particular that I really loved was uh, they were taking a picture with a woman who was dressed again as a bride, obviously, and she was doing a selfie. So they were all posing, and I loved it. And I took a few other shots, and one of them noticed me. And he yelled at me, actually. He said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I instantly froze. So I've been already shooting for a couple of hours. I froze. I felt awful. And he says, you can't take a picture of us. We didn't say you can take a picture of us. And I apologized. I felt so bad. So I said, I'm sorry. I'll delete the photos. He says, look, you can take our picture, but you have to take a picture with us. Well, uh, what? Take a picture with you? He goes, yeah, up to you. If you don't take a picture with us, no pictures. So I had to do it. I mean, come on. Looking back at that, I couldn't be more grateful of that person asking me to take a picture with them. Because as soon as I did, or rather, as soon as the photo was taken, I was a part of everyone. I was no longer observing. I was actually participating. And that was awesome. I I instantly felt more comfortable shooting them and felt more relaxed. Um, I started asking others if I could take their photo. And I'm very grateful for that person saying that because I actually participated in the event without wearing a gown, without, uh, dressing up and doing this and that. It's not my interest, but I instantly became a part of it. And that was special. I know this example uh, isn't so much about me asking someone to take their photo. It's about them calling me out and and getting me a little embarrassed, or very embarrassed rather. But I ended up asking a lot of people down the road that day if I could take their photos. And not all the time, because not every time warrants me to ask the permission to take their photo. Asking to take a picture of somebody is perfectly okay in street shooting. And I encourage you to do it. It'll make things a little bit easier. You'll get to meet people. You'll get to be more empathetic with who you're speaking to or who you're photographing, and you'll have some great experiences, some great stories to enrich your life. And I highly recommend it. So, if you have some images that you'd like to have me critique constructively, I would be happy to. Send them to me to my email. It's in the description. Up to 3 images. I'll look them over. Tell me a little bit about your story, the images that you took. If they're selected, I will post them on my next video, or rather a video in the future, uh, and share them and talk about them. I'll mention your name, I'll talk about your story, whatever you want to share, and we'll go over them. So if you're interested, by all means, look in the description, email me your images, and we'll go from there. Until the next video, I'd like to say, welcome to my world. I can't wait to see yours.